friends, Omar and Fahad, were running fast on a deserted street in the dark of night. Their hearts were beating fast. Their breathing was irregular, and sweat was shining like beads on their faces. The sound of quick footsteps from behind was proof that someone was chasing them. "We have to hide," Omar gasped. Fahad looked around and pointed to an old deserted building. "Come on!" The two friends rushed inside and hid behind a wall. A few moments later, the running footsteps on the street stopped. The shadows moved and a heavy voice echoed. "They must be hiding somewhere there."
Like, share, comment, and subscribe.
Search. Omar and Fahad had been friends since childhood. They had always stood by each other, supporting each other in every difficult time. But tonight was a night of testing. The enemies were merciless, and they didn't have much time. "If we are to survive, one of them has to stop them." Fahad looked at Omar with serious eyes. "No, I can't leave you alone." Omar grabbed Fahad's arm tightly. Fahad took a deep breath for a moment and then smiled. "I'm not leaving you. I'm just giving you a chance to live." Omar tried to stop him, but Fahad pushed him hard and ran towards the enemies himself. "Come here." "I'm here," Fahad said loudly so that the enemy's attention would be focused on him. The enemies started chasing him without wasting time. Fahad kept running through the streets, changing paths, and finally he led the enemies to a deserted place where they could face them. On the other hand, Omar's heart was pounding. He had saved his life, but was this a debt of friendship? Could he leave his friend to die? Omar's breathing was irregular. His mind was racing. Can I really leave Fahad and run? He looked back, where he could hear the fog-shrouded streets and the echoing voices of his enemies. No, I can't leave Fahad alone. He made up his mind and turned his steps back in the direction Fahad had gone. Fahad was now surrounded in a deserted warehouse. 4 men stood around him, weapons gleaming in their hands. "You think you can save your friend?" a bearded man said with a mocking laugh. Fahad took a deep breath. "I've done my job. Fahad is now safe. You've won and lost." The enemy's anger flared, but at that moment the door burst open with a loud bang. "Fahad!" Omar shouted and rushed inside. "Run, Fahad!" Fahad shouted, but it was too late. Omar picked up an iron rod and attacked a man. Fahad also seized the opportunity and started fighting against the enemies. The noise in the warehouse had increased. The echo of punches and kicks, screams and fighting sounds had permeated the atmosphere. The two friends were fighting bravely, but the enemies were more numerous. In an instant, a man stabbed Fahad, but Omar pushed himself forward. "Ah!" Omar's shoulder was stabbed. Blood began to flow. Fahad angrily knocked the attacker down, and the last remaining enemy also ran away. Omar sat on the ground, his face in pain, but his eyes smiling. "I couldn't leave you, friend." Fahad supported Omar and headed outside. In the streetlights, they were both visible, bloody but smiling. "You're crazy. Why did you risk your life?" Fahad said angrily. Omar replied in a weak voice, "It was to repay a debt of friendship, friend." Fahad and Omar fought off the enemies and saved themselves. But the danger was not over yet. They were both moving quickly, hiding in the deserted streets. Omar's shoulder was injured, but his spirits were high. "We have to get out of here quickly," Fahad gasped. "Those people could come after us again." Omar nodded in the affirmative. "But where to go? Every corner of the city is in sight of those people." Fahad thought for a moment and said, "An old acquaintance of mine has a safe place. We have to go there." The two friends quickly started moving towards the backward area of the city. They had only just reached a short distance when the headlights of a car suddenly fell on them. "These are the same people. Run!" Fahad shouted. Despite Omar's injury, the two started running through the streets at full speed. Fahad stopped at a corner of a street and quickly knocked on a door. A deep voice came from inside. "Who is it?" "Fahad! I need help!" The door opened, and a middle-aged man pulled them in. "Come here, hurry up!" As soon as they entered, Fahad closed the door and took a deep breath. The man looked at Omar's wound and said, "This wound is deep. It needs immediate treatment." Fahad looked at Omar, who was smiling despite the pain. "Don't worry, I'm fine. Just tell me, what should I do next?" The middle-aged man said seriously, "These enemies won't let you go easily. If you really want to survive, You should stay here until morning." Fahad and Omar looked at each other. They knew that now they would have to stay here to save their lives. As soon as morning came, Fahad and Omar looked outside and saw that the enemies had left. They thanked the man and headed towards their home. As Fahad and Omar set off for home, a strange feeling crept into their hearts. Had the enemies really left? Or was this a preparation for a new trap? As they were walking down a deserted street, someone suddenly whistled from behind. Fahad was immediately alerted. Omar said in a low voice, "They are trying to deceive us. We have to be careful." Just then, a car pulled up in front of them. The door opened, and the same dangerous enemy they had been trying to avoid all night got out. "Thought you would escape," the enemy said with a venomous smile. Fahad took a step back, but Omar, who was already wounded, stood ready for any attack. "We have done what we had to do," Fahad said in a strong voice. "Now let us go." The enemy laughed. "So easily? We need the secret you have." These enemies were after a secret file held by Fahad and Omar, which contained important evidence of a large criminal group. This file contained evidence that could expose criminals who had been hiding for many years. The enemies did not want the secret to fall into the hands of the police or anyone else, because if it did, their entire network would be destroyed. That is why they are after Fahad and Omar, so that they can take the file back and eliminate them forever. Fahad and Omar looked at each other. They understood that these people did not come just to chase them, but to take their lives. Suddenly, a siren sounded from behind in the street. Police cars were rapidly moving towards them. The enemy's face turned pale. "How is this possible?" he said angrily. Omar smiled and looked at Fahad. "I told this man to report it to the police as a precaution." Police cars approached, and within moments the enemy was captured. Fahad and Omar looked at each other, took a deep breath. Despite their wounds, both of them held each other's hands tightly and walked towards their home, where a new and peaceful life awaited them. True friendship is the name of sacrifice. Tell us in the comment box how you like this story.